The story I'm about to tell is probably a lot less scary than many stories on this forum, but it was actually kind of traumatizing to me. This is a few years ago, so I'm sure I've left out some details and events. Please excuse my English. This happened in the summer of 2016 when I was 24 and my husband was 29. We had 2 years prior moved to a European capital, and it was a real struggle to find a place to live. So we were living about an hour outside the city until the owner decided to sell his apartment and we had to find a new place. We were really lucky and we found this great apartment right in the middle of the city center. The rent was quite high, and despite the fact that we were trying to save up to buy our own place, we decided it was worth it. The first 2 weeks were awesome. After we had been living in the suburbs for 2 years, we now had everything just outside of our building. My office was in walking distance and there were plenty of shops, restaurants, and nightclubs. One evening after work, we were chilling at home watching a movie when we became aware of someone screaming and singing songs with extremely violent Nazi content. We were looking out our window trying to locate the noise, but couldn't exactly figure out where it came from other than from inside the courtyard that was surrounded by several buildings and a lot of apartments. So we finally gave up and just shut the window so we could have some peace. Suddenly, we hear a loud knock on our door. Kind of startled, we both went to open, thinking this was either the police or some neighbors who were also bothered by the absurd singing and screaming. We opened the door and a man in his late 30s was looking back at us. He was probably about my height, 5'8", a bit chubby and bald, and looked relatively normal. I later learned that this guy had been quite a famous child actor and had been in several movies up until his early 20s. Because he didn't look crazy and appeared relatively calm, we figured he was just another neighbor trying to locate the noise. This neighbor lived in the apartment next to us. The building was L-shaped, and if we wanted to, we could look directly into his apartment from our windows. He then proceeded to accuse us of filming him through our window, and we were so confused. We had been in our windows a lot this evening trying to locate the commotion, but we had never recorded anything. And why would we record his apartment? He now had this crazy look in his eyes, and he was saying all kinds of crazy stuff that I have now forgotten. But it was some kind of insane Nazi conspiracy theory stuff, and we were of course sent by someone to come and harm him. That's when we realized that this is the guy behind the obscene singing and screaming. As he was getting more and more agitated, he had tried to enter our apartment, but my husband shoved him out and closed and locked the door. We heard him walk into his apartment and slam the door. For some days, maybe a week, we didn't hear or see anything of this neighbor, but we did see some strange drug addict type of people coming and going from his apartment. Then the singing and screaming started again. This happened at all times, but especially at night when we were trying to sleep. We almost went crazy, but because it's so hard to find a place to live in this city, and because we really hate moving, we just put up with it. Later one afternoon, I felt this burning smell, and I went out in the hallway to try and figure out where it came from. And together with another neighbor, we quickly found out that it came from the Nazi guy's apartment. We tried knocking, but no one answered. We tried peeking through his mail slot, but saw nothing except for smoke. We obviously called the fire department, who came and knocked down his door to find him sleeping naked with something burning on the stove. They put the small fire out, he apologized, and I don't think anything else ever came of it. Of course though, he continued to sing and scream Nazi songs and racial stuff, but we were now also introduced to wolf howling. It sounded totally crazy. Even with our window shut, we could still hear him. Some more time passed, and one night before we were going to bed, my husband felt a burning smell. We immediately suspected the smell to come from his apartment yet again, and we were just about to dial the fire department when we heard this loud bang in the courtyard. We looked out and could see the Nazi guy throwing out his belongings and furniture from his windows into the courtyard. And not only this, but his apartment was in flames. We were panicking because the hallway was starting to fill with smoke, and we didn't want to die from inhaling the toxic smoke on our way down from the 3rd floor. We grabbed our stuff, and my husband went knocking on all of the doors to get our neighbors out. He didn't get any answer from the crazy guy's apartment, and together with another neighbor came up with the brilliant idea of breaking in to rescue the Nazi guy. They finally managed to knock on the door, covered their faces with some clothing, and went in. They couldn't find the guy, and they had to give up and run out before there was just too much smoke. Shortly after, the fire rescuers came and put out the fire, but they also couldn't find anybody in the Nazi guy's apartment. He went missing for some time, until eventually he showed up trying to get into his apartment. The locks had been changed at this point, and the police were still investigating. He had actually started the fire and then left his apartment, apparently trying to burn down the whole building with all of the neighbors asleep. He was later on charged with arson, but managed to run away and didn't show up in court. We moved away shortly after, so I'm not sure what happened to this guy, if he ever did time in prison. But when I Google his name, it looks like he's still living in the same apartment. I also found several stories about him online and police reports, so he's obviously a guy with a lot of issues. Too bad he has to involve other innocent people.